All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we are in for a treat. We have the pleasure of hearing from special guests today. I would like to give Katie Fernholz, with Dovetail Partners and Steering Committee member, the opportunity to introduce our next speaker. Katie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mia. It's my pleasure to be here and to serve this group as a steering committee member. And it's my pleasure to share this message from Dr. Paola Deda. She's the director of the Forest, Land, and Housing Division of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Paola holds a degree in architecture from the Polytechnic of Milan and a PhD in land and environmental planning from the Polytechnic of Torino. She previously worked at the University of British Columbia and the University of California, Berkeley, before joining the United Nations and the UNECE in 2008. I have known Paola since 2010, met her when she was in her role as section chief and in my work with UNECE on forest product market analysis. I've known her through her leadership for gender equity and the advancement of women in the forest sector through research, advocacy, and policy change. As you all can well imagine, the spaces that Paola works in are often male-dominated, intense, and intimidating in a variety of ways. I have personally admired Paola's strength and effectiveness in these spaces, and her presence and position of authority at meetings and events has been a source of inspiration and support for me personally. I am pleased to share her message today as a reminder that the work and vision of the Women's Forest Congress is reflected globally, and that the importance of these connections can be celebrated on International Women's Day. So with that, please, let's all listen to Paola's message.
Greetings from Geneva. It is a pleasure to join you on this occasion, and at least virtually, and celebrate the International Women's Day with you. As my contribution to this important day and this Congress, I would like to share some reflections on women in forestry. But first of all, the problem with underrepresentation of women in forestry has a long history, which can be traced back to historical inequalities in land ownership. In Europe, like elsewhere, private forest ownership structures were based on family ownership of forest land, led by the head of the household, a man. The title will be passed down the eldest son in the family, closing the circle of inequality that would generate lasting consequences for female family members. But with modernization, individualization, and mainstreaming of gender equality, in recent time, private forest land has been divided between multiple siblings. This has caused fragmentation of the land, but also a higher number of female primary owners. Unfortunately, this does not mean these practices are fully gone and that they've not left a lasting legacy vis-a-vis the forest sector. Some of that legacy is visible in the composition of contemporary forest sector workforce, for instance, on which actually we aim to shed some light in a recent UNECE FAO study. The study shows that nowadays men still account for the majority of the forest sector workforce across the UNECE region. Women are not only underrepresented in the overall workforce, they also tend to be underrepresented in management positions and the private sector in particular. They also tend to earn less than their equally qualified male counterparts. Another unsettling part of the story, commonly heard in other sectors as well, of course, is that women's work is often rendered invisible. The study we conducted revealed that many women are employed in many small family companies but do not appear on the official list of workers of the company nor on the payroll, with significant implications for their pension and health insurance rates. When these companies are surveyed and asked who does the office work, it is found that in most enterprises there is a woman doing the job, often the wife of the entrepreneur or family member, and usually part-time. Having said all that, we have also found that this situation is showing signs of improvement and that quite a few countries have policies in place and are actively trying to tackle this problem. This goes hand to hand with forestry as a field undergoing fundamental changes, as automation is increasingly rendering tasks that rely on physical force obsolete. Right now, an increasing number of forestry professional work is in biodiversity conservation, landscape and ecosystem management, forest education, monitoring, forest certification, and others. Well, this change also reflects a shift in thinking about our relationship with the natural world, including forests. Increasingly, this perception has shifted from one of destruction to the one where we nurture and preserve nature. And therefore, the demand for forestry professionals that will help nourish these precious ecosystems is growing. And there is solid evidence to suggest that greater representation of women in these new roles is very, very desirable. For example, recently a survey was conducted in Sweden that explored attitudes, silvicultural activities, and business activities as they link to forest ownership. The study has shown that female owners were considerably more interested in ecological, social, or recreational values of forests and were more inclined to see business opportunities in less traditional forest activities in fields as tourism and health and rehabilitation. So, literally, these women see forests for what they are as part of a larger ecosystem that is worth much more to us and in future generations when it thrives and is protected. Now that I share with you my thoughts on this and why gender equality in forestry is so important, let me also share some ideas on how we can do it. At the United Nations, we are committed to making this happen. FAO, UNECE, and ILO are leading the action at the international level through dedicated fora, studies, discussions on the topic. The joint UNECE FAO Forest and Timber section has a long history of leading the work on this topic through a combination of research and policy work. And I would like to invite you to learn more about it and check out our website and our studies when you have time. For their part, countries need to commit to taking the matter seriously and undertake a range of steps to ensure it is tackled properly. This includes not making assumption that issues or problems are ever gender neutral and undertaking analysis that clearly focuses on gender, showing political will through allocation of resources for gender mainstreaming, making efforts to broaden women's participation at all levels of decision making in forestry, fighting discrimination, and actively working to increase the share of women in the forest workforce. Only when these steps have been taken, we can talk meaningfully about a sustainable forestry sector that yield benefits to current as well as future generations. Let me conclude by saying that I noted with interest that the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. So this is the day to choose to challenge the gender bias and inequality in forests that is negatively affecting us all, as well as our forests. So I trust that all women in forestry listening right now are ready to choose to challenge. I can commit to this from my end. Also, an international organization, I'm a woman in forestry, and I thank you for organizing this dialogue, which has indeed chosen to challenge. So thank you again for your attention and happy International Women's Day to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deda, for your inspirational words. We know that underrepresentation of women in the forest community is an issue. I would like to say opportunities for growth instead of issues because there is solutions to this problem. Women have had to sacrifice for many years and have had recently been recognized for the hard work and dedication that we have put forward. As we begin to see a shift, we have to understand that there is still a lot of work to be done, but we have started to be the change that we want to see and be. I think mentorship is integral to the outcomes of our young people. Sometimes people are dealt a hand because of the generational challenges, but I believe that those can be broken. I am living proof, and we can be living proof in our community to change the narrative for women. Dr. Deda spoke about gender equality and gave a few solutions to combat the issue. She stated, first, you must take the issue seriously and then be able to have open dialogue about gender equality. If we don't discuss the issue, then we would not see any solutions being put in place. Dr. Deda said some words that resonated with me and truly motivated me to continue to build relationships and foster our current and future generation of women. So